So the Houthis may have a ceasefire with the United States, but they do not have one with Israel. And by most accounts, fighting between those two is set to escalate in the coming days and weeks. I mean, just today, both the Houthis and the IDF released videos explaining why they're doing what they're doing and why the other side is bad, which is, just a little bit of a hint that the attacks are set to continue. Now, we're going to run through both of those videos today, but we've also got some Houthi AI slop that was put out just about an hour ago, documenting from the Houthi perspective how the United States lost an F-18, the second in 2 weeks, in the Red Sea. Now, that loss, unfortunately, has been confirmed by the DoD. Maybe not exactly the way the Houthis describe it, but we'll save that for the second half of today's video. Now, starting out, it does appear that the ceasefire is in effect that President Trump announced yesterday between the United States and the Houthis. From what we can tell at this point, it looks like it's essentially, you don't shoot at us, we won't shoot at you. And that appears to carry over to U.S. commercial vessels traveling through the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. However, as soon as that went into effect, we have seen the Houthis double down, triple down on their threats against Israel, saying, well, now that we don't have to worry about the United States, we will continue to enforce a blockade of any Israeli ships through the Red Sea, and we're going to continue attacking Israel until the siege of Gaza is lifted and humanitarian aid is allowed in for the Palestinian people. In fact, just today, they have put out a video, a little bit different than yesterday's. This one is titled, "The Response is Coming," and you'll notice that throughout this, there's no threats against the United States. It's the first time in a while, but let's go ahead and play that here. Now, same as yesterday's video, I'm going to strip out the audio so it doesn't get hit with a copyright, but I will dictate what it says. The position of our Yemeni people is very strong, and they are steadfast in their position. They won't budge on it. Whatever the reaction of the Israeli enemy, no matter how showy it is, or whatever its result was, everything that happens on the part of the Israeli enemy, motivating for a greater determination to take revenge on the one hand and to continue to support the Palestinian people, which is the main goal on the other hand. So the response is coming. It must be. So the response is coming. It must be. For the aggression committed by the Israeli enemy. On the other hand, our operations are continuing. And in continuous and diligent work to escalate everything we can against the Israeli enemy until he stops his genocide against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and stops his suffocating siege, which prevents food and medicine from the Palestinian people and the necessary and basic requirements for life. The response is coming. So I don't know how much, that's the Houthi translation. They're the ones that put out the English on that. I feel like, who knows? Seems like it was probably pretty good. The pace of my trying to talk through it was all mixed up because I don't actually know what was coming next on that. But then this same message we're seeing repeated across Houthi media today, where they're just saying, we're going after the Israelis now. We're not going to stop. We're going to increase attacks. Our mission has not changed at all. And again, they're saying that the big thing that has changed in the last 24 hours is that they no longer have to worry about the United States attacking them or protecting Israel. Now, we'll wait to see how that actually plays out. And, the United States so far has not really played much of a role in intercepting Houthi munitions fired at Israel. Most of those, from what I can tell, have been intercepted by Israel. But the United States may back out of the Red Sea entirely. We'll see what this actually looks like going forward. A lot of pro-Houthi, pro-Iranian media is really spinning this as the United States abandoning Israel, which, again, we'll have to wait and see what this looks like over the long term. Now, Israel as well, and this is notable, is kind of leaning into this fight and saying, hey, you guys need to know who the Houthis are and why we're doing what we're doing. And they put out what I think is a pretty good explainer video earlier today. They'll go ahead and play here that, again, it's in English, so it's going to be appealing to a Western audience. I think it was probably a pretty good move on their part. Let's give that a watch.
What in the world is going on between the IDF and the Houthis? The Houthis, also known as the Ansar Allah movement, is an Iranian-backed terrorist organization based in Yemen that has held significant influence in the country's political and military scene for decades. So, How did they get to where they are today? Since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran has been trying to spread its influence throughout the region, using proxies in places like Syria, Lebanon, Gaza, Iraq, and Yemen. In the early 90s, the rebel group started to make its name through terrorism and violence and quickly became yet another one of Iran's proxies. The group was initially founded in northern Yemen under religious and political aspects, and since then received significant support from Iran, both militarily and politically. In 2014, the Houthis took over the Yemeni government and launched a civil war. Throughout the conflicts, the Houthis gained significant territory and influence throughout Yemen.
أما هذه الخطوة التاريخية الحكيمة الرشيدة الصحيحة السليمة المسؤولة فهي لمصلحة هذا البلد.
Today, Yemen's capital city, Sana'a, and many other parts of the country are under the Houthis' control. But the Houthis aren't only a threat to the Middle East. Their goal is to reach the Western world, as their slogan says, "Death to America, death to Israel. Cursed be the Jews." In January 2022, the Houthis gained control of the strategically important Al Hudaydah port. Since then, they have been robbing and compromising international commercial ships and vessels crossing Yemen's coast in the Red Sea, endangering global shipping routes, disrupting global trade, and putting international vessels in danger. After October 7th, the Houthis announced their support for Hamas and began their continuous attacks toward the State of Israel, a strategy that has sent millions of Israelis into shelters. Houthi-launched attacks towards Israel have targeted an elementary school in central Israel, injured dozens of civilians at a playground, and this week targeted Ben Gurion, our largest civilian airport. In the end, the Houthis are a threat to everyone: the Yemeni population, who have been living under humanitarian crisis for years because of the Houthis regime, and the Western world, having to deal with the consequences of another one of Iran's proxies threatening regional stability. Israel and the IDF will not tolerate such acts of terrorism and will defend ourselves on any front.
Look, in any conflict, in any war, I don't think you can overdo the explanations to the general public. This has been a complaint of mine, a frustration of mine with the war in Ukraine now for 3+ years, where I don't feel like we've done a good job in the United States explaining why that's actually important to us and what's happening there. And some of the most basic questions are still being answered. So, look, good move by the IDF here to just lay this out clearly. Especially the people in Israel, they know all about Hamas, right? Know all about Iran. Maybe the Houthis haven't been top of mind for very long, but it does look like, just based off recent events between the Israeli strikes yesterday that hammered the Sana'a airport. We actually got some footage now showing what that looks like on the ground after that series of Israeli strikes. You know, we heard originally that the airport was out of commission in like 15 minutes. Yeah, I think that's pretty safe to say. This thing is not coming back into operation anytime soon. So there were no Israeli strikes that I've heard of today. And of course, it looks like the United States has stopped attacking the Houthis, but we should probably expect, so long as the Houthis continue their attacks into Israeli territory, that the IDF will continue flying missions south to hit the Houthis in Yemen. Now, following yesterday's ceasefire announcement, we actually got news that the U.S. lost the second F-18 in 2 weeks in the Red Sea. I'm going to go ahead and play. If you want to watch it, it's an interesting look here. Some Houthi AI slop is probably the best way to put it. I couldn't put this together, but nonetheless, it's the Houthis' view of what actually happened yesterday. But we're going to run through some reporting by the War Zone, where they say the jet crashed into the sea during its attempt to land. Both the pilot and the weapons system officer were able to eject and were recovered by helicopter with only minor injuries. The War Zone has confirmed that the arrestment failed on touchdown and the jet careened off the deck. So that's the thing that helps the jet stop as it's landing on the aircraft carrier. The cable across the carrier there. They say this is the second loss of a Super Hornet from the carrier, one of 2 operating in the region in just a week. The other loss occurred while the vessel was evading a Houthi attack, with the Super Hornet rolling off the deck into the sea. Nobody was hurt in that incident either. And this was confirmed by the Department of Defense through Sean Parnell, the spokesperson there, who said, quote, "The DoD continues to monitor the situation regarding the loss of an F-18 fighter aircraft on the USS Harry S. Truman earlier today. We can confirm that this aircraft was not struck by the Houthis. An investigation is underway and more information will be made available when the cause of this mishap is determined. The Harry S. Truman Carrier Strike Group remains fully mission capable." Now, we've got this AI video where the Houthis are essentially saying, like, it fell off because we launched this missile at it. And I will say, one thing about that AI that is 100% accurate is the Houthi celebration when they launched the missile, rather than waiting for the actual effects of the strike, that is 100% consistent with Houthi media. They celebrate the launch of the munition as though that is the success, and we never really know if they actually hit anything or even come close to some of their targets. Now, the Houthis put out a statement saying that they did shoot down or destroy this F-18, saying, quote, "The operation resulted in the downing of an American F-18 due to the state of confusion and panic the enemy reached during the targeting operation." Now, they mentioned that they carried out this attack. This announcement just came out earlier today, but they said this specific attack happened after U.S. strikes in Yemen and before President Trump announced the ceasefire. So I want to make that clear. In this same statement, the Houthis did say they carried out 2 drone attacks against Israel. Not entirely clear how those shook out. I did see the IDF earlier announce that at least 1 UAV was shot down, likely emanating from Houthi-controlled territory in Yemen. But as it sits right now, it looks like the U.S. Houthi ceasefire is still in effect. That's been holding. We've got 24 hours under our belt. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look. Some statements here from President Trump talking about that, saying essentially, we trust him. We think it'll hold, at least for now. Here we go.
But so we do. We take their word for it. It was, we hit them very hard. They had a great capacity to withstand punishment. They took tremendous punishment. And, you could say there's a lot of bravery there. It was amazing what they took. But we honor their commitment and their word. They gave us their word that they wouldn't be shooting ships anymore, and we honor that. I want to thank you all for being here.
Now, I cut out a lot of that response because that was rambling. I think that was like 10, 15 seconds. His actual answer there was the same thing, just like 90 seconds worth of that. But nonetheless, that's essentially where it stands today. The ceasefire is still in effect between the United States and the Houthis. We don't shoot at you. You don't shoot at us. You don't shoot at U.S. commercial ships. Again, the big question here, I think, is going to be, will the United States military assets in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden intervene if it looks like Houthi munitions are being used to target other civilian vessels? We talk about freedom of navigation. Right now, it looks like the only freedom of navigation that we have successfully ensured is that of U.S. commercial vessels. I would argue that that generally means overall freedom of navigation, but that would require the United States possibly intervening and stepping up to protect other commercial vessels. We'll have to wait and see as those incidents actually play out. I'll put a link below to each one of the videos used in today's video if you want to check those out in their entirety. That's all I got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.